Hi, now we're going to create our first iOS 7 application. So let's go ahead and open up Xcode as I've done here, and we're going to click on Create a New Xcode Project. Now it's going to give us several options, and we want to be under the iOS heading rather than, as we have been, the OS X heading. We have been doing applications using the command line tool. Now we're going to use applications using one of these templates. So to begin with, we're going to use the single view application template, and we're going to be using this template quite often, either this template or also the empty application template. Quite frankly, some of these other templates do give you a good starting point for some other applications, but frequently we have to remove more information than we're putting in with some of these other templates. However, let's start with the single view application template, and then we'll click Next. And now let's just call this Hello World. It would be tragic if we were doing a programming course and didn't include a Hello World programming at the beginning. So now we'll click Next, and we're going to be asked where to save our project. So I'm going to put this in Unit 2, and I will click Create. And here we go. So we'll see some general project settings here, and we'll talk about these quite in detail a little bit later in the course. However, let's look at some of the differences that we have. First of all, we'll note that we have this app Delegate class, and we'll get into this a little bit in the next session. App Delegate, though, is the application's delegate class, and it has methods that allow us to respond to application level events, let's say. We also have a storyboard. Now, a storyboard is where the views of our application are going to be housed, and they'll be compiled from this storyboard file into the application, into things called UI views. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about design patterns coming up. Then we have a class called the view controller. The view controller is where we control our views. So let's just go ahead and start by dropping some things on the storyboard. Let's put a label on the storyboard someplace, and we'll center it, make it a little bit larger so it'll hold our text, keep it centered, and then set the text to be centered as well using this button. And then we'll put a button control, and we'll notice that the button in iOS 7 has no boundary, and we'll change the text on the button to say hello, and hit enter, and then recenter it. And now our label will just delete that text entirely in the label. The label is still there, and we can see that by selecting it. So now in the view controller, we're going to set up a couple of properties of this class right here in the interface. The first, or one property, this is a label. So it's going to become part of the view. So rather than saying strong here, because it will immediately become part of the view, and the view will have a reference to it, I'm going to make the label weak. Now, I'm going to use this keyword IBOutlet, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but this is an outlet property. In other words, it's going to be referring to a label on a view. So it's an outlet for something that we're going to do from the view controller here to the view. And then it's the class name of a label is UI label, user interface label. And then I'm just going to call it display. Just to keep things simple. Then I need a method to display text into the label. So I'm going to call that, first of all, it's an instance method, I should say. And then I'm going to use void, but I'm not just going to say void. I need to let Interface Builder, which is the thing the storyboard is residing in, I need to let Interface Builder that this is a method that deals with the control that's on the user interface. And so instead of saying void, I say IBAction. IBAction is just a type def to void. So IBAction. And then let's just say button pressed, because this will fire when the button is pressed. And then I have one parameter called sender, which is of an ID type, any class. So now I can define these. I don't need to define the property, it's already there. But I do need to set up my action method. So remember that was IBAction, and of course I could copy this. Button pressed, and then if I do it that way, I'll need to delete the sender there at the end. And then all I'm going to say here is self display, and now the display is the label, and it has a text property, so I'll say text, and that's an NS string. And then I'll just set that to an NS string, hello world. Now there are a couple of things that are left to do, but this is the entire application at this point. Now if we go back into our storyboard, this view controller here represents this view controller class. So if I click on the view controller and right click, I'll get an interface that shows the things that are going on in that view controller. The display, I'll grab this little icon here and pull it over, so I just clicked and I'm dragging to the label. And now that wires display up to this label, and when I hover over display, I see the label turning on and off. The button pressed is a received action from our view, and if I do the same thing to the button and release it, it will ask me what event I want to trap for this action. So I'm going to use touch up inside, meaning that the user's finger left the screen while it was still inside the bounds of the button. So now when I hover over this, it says button say hello, and then touch up inside. And that's it. At this point, I can run my app. So in just a moment, it'll come up, and the first time it has to start the simulator, so it takes a little bit longer. I saw build succeeded, so very shortly I should see my app running. So here we are. Now the app is running. Notice I have a status bar being displayed up here, and that is represented by the battery icon, but it's overlapping our view. So now if I click on the Say Hello button, it says Hello World. And this is an extremely simple little app, but it is an app. It's an iPhone application written on the iOS frameworks. Thank you very much.